Having reached the hour of 5:30, I am calling the June 7th, 2022 Modesto City Council meeting to order and ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Madrigal. I do not see him on Zoom yet. Councilmember Ricky.
Present.
Councilmember Canoyer.
Present.
Vice Mayor Wright.
Present.
Councilmember Scutia-Brayton.
Present.
And Mayor Zwallen.
Here. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation from John Apodaca from Good Life. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is our pastor here, John? No, does not appear to be here. All right, we will go on. Does the city clerk have any announcements?
Yes, Mayor. No email correspondence was received. Also, a reminder, public comment period is limited to 3 minutes. Blue speaker request cards are located in the lobby of our council chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of the council members have any conflicts of interest? Seeing no hands raised, I will report out on closed session. The City Council has concluded the performance evaluation of our city attorney. The council unanimously noted City Attorney Sanchez is delivering outstanding city attorney services. And thank you for your service. Next on the agenda is acknowledgements and presentations. And the first is a presentation of proclamation declaring June 2022 as Men's Health Month. Despite advances in medical technology and research, men continue to live an average of 5 years less than women, with Native American and African American men having the lowest life expectancy. And COVID-19 variants continue to spread across the country, with the Centers for Disease Control reporting that males are more likely to die from this pandemic and encouraging safe behaviors, including wearing masks and being vaccinated, will help stop the spread of COVID-19. Educating the public and healthcare providers about the importance of a healthy lifestyle and early detection of male health problems will result in reducing rates of mortality from disease. Men who are educated about the value that preventative health can play, prolonging their lifespan and their role as productive family members will be more likely to participate in health screenings. Fathers who stay connected to their children and maintain a healthy lifestyle are role models for their children and have happier, healthier children. And Men's Health Month will focus on a broad range of men's health issues, including heart disease, mental health, diabetes, and prostate, testicular, and colon cancer. The residents of our city are encouraged to increase awareness of the importance of a healthy lifestyle, regular exercise, and medical checkups. Now, therefore, I, Sue Zwallen, Mayor of the City of Modesto, do hereby proclaim June 2022 as Men's Health Month and encourage our residents to pursue preventative health practices and early detection efforts throughout the year. Dated the 7th day of June, 2022. That is item 1, and as a nurse, that's a good reminder that hopefully we were all listening to and take heed to. Item 2 is the presentation of proclamation declaring June 2022 as Pride Month. The City of Modesto recognizes the month of June 2022 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer LGBTQ Pride Month. The City of Modesto observes Pride Month to support the rights of all citizens to experience equality and freedom from discrimination. And all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. LGBTQ individuals have had immeasurable impact to the cultural, civic, and economic successes of our country. And the City of Modesto is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equality for LGBTQ people in our diverse community. And while society at large increasingly supports LGBTQ equality, it is essential to acknowledge that the need for education and awareness remains vital to end discrimination and prejudice. And the nation was founded on the principle that every individual has infinite dignity and worth. And the City Council calls upon the people of this municipality to embrace this principle and work to eliminate prejudice wherever it exists. And celebrating Pride Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for the LGBT community, and is an opportunity to take action and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance, and advance equal rights. Now, therefore, I, Suze Wallen, Mayor of the City of Modesto, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2022 as Pride Month in support of the LGBT community and recognize all LGBTQ residents whose influential and lasting contributions to our neighborhoods make the City of Modesto a vibrant community in which to live, work, and visit. We have Catalina Zambrano, is my understanding, Advocacy Director for the Central California LGBTQIA Initiative. Is that correct? Welcome. Uh-huh.
It's my first time, but I just want to say thank you to all who gave us this opportunity to stand in front of you, and I'm so proud to be standing here. Just thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome, and I will come down and present you with this proclamation, and we will have a picture.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Alrighty. Next is public comment period. If anyone wishes to speak on any item under public comment, this is for items not on the council agenda, and each person has 3 minutes to speak. I see that there's 2 on one card. It's about consent items, and I will get to that momentarily. So I have 1 blue card from Louisa Bryant. Welcome, Louisa.
Envelopes to you, and all you're interested in is the mold report. My presentation has only to do with the mold report. The other, you can take it, read at your convenience, and work with what my presentation tells you.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Sure,
Okay.
we will do that.
Okay. Again, the breathing problem, so I'm doing a little better. Okay. Should I start now?
Sure.
This is my third appearance before the members of the council in the evening to the council since early March, where I asked for your help in getting an advocate to assist me with my allegations of a fraudulent mold inspection report submitted to the City of Modesto Building Inspector's Office by the owners of my apartment complex. I'm asking for your support and intervention in this most serious legal conundrum and request your assistance in removing this deceptive report from my records. It has been a critical impediment to my physical and emotional well-being and health issues. The previous agencies I was referred to by your thing were unable to help, and I was referred to other departments and so on and so forth with no judicial conclusion. I have provided each member of the council with a 12-page copy of the mold report showing as client Pacific Park Maintenance, the contact the young MP. Project Creek Apartment, that's the address, date of submittal and date of receipt and date of report. If you scan the 12 pages, you will find this is the only name and address mentioned in all 12 pages. No other names, such as Louisa Bryant or the name of the owners of my apartment complex, are included anywhere in this report. And using Creek Apartments as an address is absurd. There are no air sample analysis summaries or air sampling analysis results. Please refer to page 7, fourth paragraph. The lab, quote, lab requires at least one outdoor air sample and one indoor air sample in order to make indoor-outdoor comparisons and assessments of airborne mold levels, which are an integral part of the lab system. In addition, there's on page 7, second paragraph, there's a note on the surface, what surface samples are. There were no air samples at all. There's no, with their harassing me for months, refer to the 8 pages of the contacts that I gave you, and denying me the opportunity to be relocated with their insistence that there was no mold in the patio roof. My health issues have been worsening. Another ER and hospital on the holidays. And I must be relocated as soon as possible. I have also provided members with 13 pages of the test. I have really important, it's very important to the whole thing. Please allow me to do it. It's the reason I'm here. And I'm most importantly, refer to page 6, paragraph 3. Quote, this report applies only to the samples taken at the time, place, and location referenced in the report and received by lab, and to the property and weather conditions existing at that time only. The only referenced time, place, location, and property is that of the client, Pacific Pure Maintenance. It should be apparent to anyone that without the name of Louisa Bryant or my address and no mention of the owners of the American apartment complex or their address, questions should be asked. There is no discernible address. And being aware of all the facts leaves us with this question, and this is the main thing. Where exactly was this erroneous inspection conducted and by whom? And another question, how could the personnel in the City of Modesto's building inspector's office accept this deceptive and fraudulent report without any discussion as to its validity? And with the, like I said,
Can you wrap it up quickly
Yes.
here? Because
That's most
maybe
important.
Scotty, I can give this information to Scotty Douglas, our deputy city manager, that
think
we
I'm
can
going
then
to
again
get-
follow up.
thank you, Mayor. I think I believe that I will get help this, but
Okay,
it's a
okay, great.
thank you.
All right, thanks. Is there anyone else wishing to comment on, under public comment on things not on the agenda? Okay. Yes, would you, I'm going to address.
No,
your
no.
part. Yeah, okay,
I
this
wanted
is
to-
something else? Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Emerson Drake, 35-year Modesto resident, and here at this portion of the meeting to represent the fledgling Modesto Taxpayers Association. At a recent Modesto Irrigation District meeting, I received some very disconcerting information.
Speaker where we can hear you.
I'll try again, sorry about that.
Thank you.
Apologize. At a recent Modesto Irrigation District meeting, John Menzinger relayed some information that quite honestly surprised me. We were talking about the Modesto water treatment plants, the two of them. Now, we really know that we had one that would have been sufficient, but we were going to grow to 400,000, so we built a second. We built it twice, but that's beside the point. But Modesto is buying about 30,000 acre-feet a year from MID's water treatment plant. What's scary and what concerns me is that he announced that Modesto doesn't have a good distribution system and actually can't take much more than that 30,000 acre-feet. Now, the plant can do almost double that, but without a significant outlay of capital that, to my knowledge, has never, ever been brought to the attention of the Modesto people. And surely somebody on your side of the dais in Modesto City staff is aware of this. Our costs, you've raised the sewer rates, you've raised the garbage rate, where it's going up. We're trying to do a tax increase. We're giving raises tonight. But we're not telling the people of Modesto exactly what our rates are going to be and what our costs that we're going to incur. So how are we going to do this future development if we can't get the water from the treatment plant to blend with our groundwater that we know is going bad? So I would appreciate it that the next time we put a gold ribbon commission together to decide what our comprehensive fees are going to be, and that's not addressing tonight, that's just an inflationary mark you're using, that we would try to factor this in, because to my knowledge we haven't yet. The citizens of Modesto need to know whether they're going to pay the bill to change the distribution facilities or distribution equipment, or whether the developers that want to move in here and take money from us are going to pay for that. Now, I'd never heard that we couldn't handle the water that we can get from the treatment plant. I was surprised too. But Chairman John Menzinger of the MID board was very specific about it. So I'm just making you aware. The Modesto Taxpayers Association wanted to make you aware, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to come forward to speak under public comment? Welcome.
Good evening, council members and mayor. My name is Howard Carmen. I don't really know how to go about this, but recently we know that the COVID has been released out, that it is in Stanislaus County, Fresno County, and San Joaquin County in the Modesto B. Whether it's right, wrong, or what's going on, the community wants answers in regards to what's happening. I'm here in regards to the street team services that we received. I work for the street team in regards to that, and there's supposed to be protocol. And when I brought it to the attentions of the supervisors and the CEO, I was told that they did not have the efficient funds to be able to do COVID tests on us. And so basically what they've done is they shut us down as a protocol of the Department of Health and Services or Board of Equalization, whoever handles all this. And we should have been all tested at that point to assure ourselves, because we had been transferred, because we lost the, whatever it is downtown, down here by the movie theater, the lease. So we're at Salvation Army. Long story short, there's a little area there that they can come into from Salvation Army. And we looked over, and there they are standing in line doing COVID tests, and we're standing right there. And the protocol should show, and we go on the faith of everybody else that if you're not feeling good and this and that, we've been told that. I'm not here because of pointing any fingers or anything like that. I want to know, because they're telling me that they can't get the funding to have that done for us to go back to work, to clear us to go back to work. We're put on basically administrative leave, which means that we get 50% of what we call stipends, because it's a nonprofit organization, okay? Which we're not refusing to go to work, we're not refusing to help out the community, and we love the city of Modesto, and we love keeping it clean. But it's penalizing us, it's not good for the streets, and I would just like some answers as to how we can go about getting this done and get the funding done. I understand there's some kind of CEO that runs the street team or whatever, but they didn't have the answers, and I have not spoke to him yet in regards to it. But if you're taking protocols as to the COVID testing and what's happening in Stanislaus County, and whoever's making the authority decisions as to what we can and can't do when we wear a mask and not wear a mask, whether it's inside or outside, I believe that there should be funding for that, and there should be no question asked that we should be having rapid testing done on a regular basis when these kind of cases happen, no matter what. It should be unquestionable. And I would like some kind of answer as to, I can be directed, or as to why we can't have these services available for us. It's not about the funding, and it's not really so much about the stipends, but the bottom line is we get penalized 50% until we're lifted right now.
Okay.
And we've been told by them that we cannot go to work until somebody has the authority to make that decision, and I would just like to know who that person is.
Okay. I can definitely refer you to Allison and or Scotty to get your information to give you the answers to those questions.
I know Scotty, and he's a very busy guy, and I have a little trouble with that because it usually takes a little bit of time just to take and ruffle his feathers and email him a lot, and brush his shoulders a few minutes, you know. I don't mind doing that, but this is an immediate situation that needs to get taken care of. It's not a situation where we just want to sit around and have something happen or anything that, and I'm not saying it is. We work on our merit system, and we're pretty good about it, and we haven't had any cases per se, except that wave that we've already been to because we were told that we had to have the COVID test done on a regular basis every week. And we don't mind doing that or whatever, but in these kind of protocols and situations and circumstances, I'm asking for an injunction, emergency injunction, to have this taken care of so we can resume back, because I think we're the only organization, from my understanding, that is keeping from going out there in the community and be able to pick up papers and work for the street team to keep our city clean.
All right.
Allison's going to take care of you. She's not as busy as Scotty, so she's going to get on it first thing in the morning.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate
You're
it.
very welcome.
Have a nice evening.
You too. Thank you. All right. I see Ramon Rodriguez online. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I would like to, I've been in Modesto a couple times, and I've noticed that in some parks, Beard Park, as well as the Tuolumne Legion River Park on the airport neighborhood, they've been closed for quite a while, and it's been neglected since it was being closed. Also, I realized since those parks are closed, there is like a growing number of homeless camps going out there, and for this day forward, I'm still asking when you're going to start opening up the parks and how you're going to start mitigating the homeless camps and put into a city and county sanctioned sanctuary place so they can have like a dignified place to stay. Also, I'm asking for affordable housing in the formal municipal park right by the current stadium. I would like to see affordable housing units that combines with the park so it can maintain the park's aesthetics as well as providing affordable housing for that neighborhood. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak at this time, in person or online? All right. Seeing none. Next on the agenda is consent items. An item may be removed from consent and discussed at the request of a member of the public or council member. Is there anyone on the council that would like a consent item removed for further discussion? Seeing none, is there anyone in the public that would like an item removed from consent for further discussion or comment? I have one card from Emerson Drake requesting that we pull consent item number 10 and number 16. Just give me a moment. Items 10 and 16. All right, thank you very much. Will the city clerk please read the consent items?
Yes, Mayor. Item 3, consider approving the minutes from the May 24th council meeting. Item 4, consider calling for the holding of municipal election to be held on November 8th, 2022, requesting the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors to consolidate the City of Modesto municipal election to be held on November 8th, 2022, requesting the services of the Stanislaus County Registrar of Voters to conduct the election on behalf of the City of Modesto and the Modesto City School Board, and adopting regulations for candidates for elective office pertaining to candidate statements. Item 5, consider receiving the 2022 local agency biannual notice directing staff to conduct a review of the city's conflict of interest code and the filing of a biannual notice as required by the Political Reform Act. Item 6, consider approving the recommended budget adjustments to fiscal year 2021-2022 annual operating and capital improvement program budgets. Item number 7, consider acknowledging receipt of the annual inflationary adjustments for the capital facility fees and development user fees for fiscal year 2022-2023. Item number 8, consider approving the updates to the city's debt management policy. Item number 9, consider accepting the monthly investment report for March 2022. Item 10 was removed from consent. Item 11, consider accepting an informational report on the January and February 2022 grant applications and awards. Item number 12, consider approving the fiscal year 2022-2023 appropriations limit. Item number 13, consider approving the First Amendment increasing the agreement amount with Public Group, aka Public Surplus, for the furnishing of online auction services by $12,000 annually from $18,000 to a revised annual estimated amount of $30,000 for a revised total amount not to exceed $114,000 over 5 years. Item number 14, consider approving the payment of various equipment maintenance agreements for fiscal year 2022-2023 with multiple equipment manufacturers for all city departments for an annual cost not to exceed $706,022, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute the equipment maintenance agreements. Item number 15, consider approving the payment of hardware and software maintenance support agreements for fiscal year 2022-2023 for an estimated annual cost not to exceed $6,282,787, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute routine renewal agreements. Item 16 was removed from consent. Item 17, consider approving an agreement with the National Plant Services, Inc. out of Hayward, California for pipe inspection and assessment services for the river trunk inspection and assessment project in the amount of $163,000 plus $16,300 for additional services if needed, for a total amount not to exceed $179,300.
Motion to approve consent items except for number 10 and 16.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Will the city clerk please do the roll call?
Councilmember Madrigal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Scutia Brayton.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwollen.
Aye. So it carries 6-0. So now we will go back to the items that have been removed from consent, and the first one is item 10. Is that correct? Correct. Consider accepting an informational report for the April 2022 accounts payable payment register and void report. Welcome, Deanna Christensen.
Good evening, council members. Deanna Christensen, Director of Finance. This item is our monthly informational report that we bring before council to capture all of the cash disbursements that have been issued specifically in the month of April. This would capture any checks that were issued for any vendor payments for goods, services that were received and rendered to the city, any refunds that would have been issued to any of our customers, businesses, as well as any employee reimbursements or travel. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have on any of the information on this item.
All right, thank you. Any questions from council members? Seeing none. Any questions from the public? Comments?
Emerson Drake again for the Modesto Taxpayers Association. You know, when I went over this, it was amazing to me. If you look at the amounts and the dates and when they were generated. For an example, Myers-Nave, our city attorney, there's 6 invoices here dating back to the 23rd of December of last year. They come to about $18,000. Now, his contract, Myers-Nave's contract, however you want to state it, says that they're going to bill every 30 days. It's the 3rd page, item C. You were kind enough to give me a copy of it, so I read it. Imagine that. But he's supposed to bill every 30 days, or the system is, but they're not doing it. And you said they're doing an exemplary job, exceptional job, excuse me. Don't want to put words in your mouth. I have to question their ability to give us, their inability to give us timely invoices. But he goes on. There's another law firm called Lafayette Kumagi, LLP. Apparently, we racked up a bill with them in April of last year for $16,000 that they just now sent through. There's another company, Pacific States Environmental Contractor, 3 different invoices, July, September, and November of 20 for $148,000. There's even a check for rank security from the 23rd of December. Isn't it amazing how that date seems to be coming up? Of 21 of last year for another $5,200, and one from November for $8,359. Now, the other question I really have, I'd like to know why these are being presented so late, to be honest, and why we're paying them without any doubts or any questions. And Beard Land, we're renting property from Beard Land Improvement to the tune of $6,154. We cut them a deal so they don't have to pay the Modesto City taxes the rest of us do. And we're renting property, they're not giving it to us. Even MID made a better deal with them than that. But I got to tell you, my favorite of all, some company called Piccadilly Deli from October 9th of 19. Now, the way I'm seeing things going, I'm wondering whether that's 1919 or 2019. And this is for $160. Who in the world holds onto an invoice for 2.5, 3 years and sends it through, and who pays it? Now, I want Modesto to pay their bills, don't misunderstand me. But we've got a city attorney who can't get his invoices in on a timely basis, and it's been an ongoing problem that the city's never addressed. We have a city manager who approves some of those invoices. According to his contract, I can't say that you did these, I'm not trying to suggest that. Again, I've just read his contract completely. I haven't got all the way through yours yet, sir. The question starts appearing, well, who's watching the hen house? The Fox? Now, I'd really like to know, since this is a question time, what we're paying the $6,000 to Beard for, and why we're accepting invoices 6 months late from the city attorney. I would hope you do that before you vote. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Are there any other?
Answers, please.
I think that there was so many questions there that we would need to get that in writing, and then we can answer each one of those.
Okay, no offense, but we've gone around this before. During the consent items, you're supposed to respond. Now, I tried asking you one at a time to get an answer from you. You insist on me giving you them all at once. I do this, and then you put me off. So from now on, I root myself in the ground until these aren't the robots you're looking for comes after me. Now, you need to respond to the citizens. We're talking about transparency. I don't mind that you have a city council member that's willing to do an MC fundraiser with Ted House and refuses to stand up here and have his picture taken with the LGBTQ plus community. But you need to be accountable and transparent for these questions. His contract says 30 days, every 30 days. And I want to know why we're running the Beard. Those are the 2 big ones.
All right. I appreciate your questions, and we will do the best of our ability to answer them at a time that's more appropriate to give you the details.
When is the time, and I'll stop, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to. When is the time more appropriate before you acknowledge it? This is supposed to be an informative vote, right?
I appreciate your questions.
But you're not generating any answers.
Correct, at this moment.
citizens of Modesto. That's why we have a new Modesto Taxpayers Association.
All right, are there any other members of the public that wish to comment?
Madam Mayor, just had a question.
Okay, this is public time, so I'll come to you just in a moment, Tony.
He's got the right to ask.
Oh,
Okay. So any other members of the public that wish to speak on consent item 10? Seeing none, all right, we'll go back to council. Councilmember Madrigal.
just wanted to ask if it's at all possible for city staff to answer any of the gentleman's questions, Mr. Drake's questions, either initially or preliminarily, and you know, that way we can at least attempt to try to be responsive during public comment, because this is the moment when the public gets to come, say their piece, ask us questions. And I know that they come in the hopes of getting an answer to questions that they have on the spot. That's historically I've seen that done, and you know, many times staff has been able to handle a question right away, or worst case scenario, the person chairing the meeting, the mayor, has asked city staff to follow up with the speaker after they're done speaking, and you know, follow up with them offline to answer their questions. Could we possibly get staff to provide
Yes,
a
and that was
preliminary
what I
answer
was
to some of the
suggesting,
questions?
is that offline, these many questions be answered.
No. What I was saying is, could we get an initial response from staff in addition to him getting his questions answered offline? Because I'm concerned that we're sending a wrong message to the public saying, if you come speak to council, you may not get your questions answered. You know, when you speak at the dais, at the microphone during public comments, and to me, I feel that sends a wrong message about and especially the essence of public comment, if you will, where the public gets their moment to address the council and hear some sort of response to their complaint. Similar, for example, to the gentleman that came and complained about the frequent car wrecks on Orangeburg Avenue because of drunk driving and whatnot, and that they wrecked several of his cars in front of his home, and that it's a really unsafe situation. He came imploring us for an answer, and we sort of did say, you know, we're going to have staff talk to you or whatnot, and he kept coming back because he wants his city government to be responsive. So that's why I was asking, Madam Mayor,
Right.
if there's any way we
Correct,
could
yes.
get
And I
initial
believe that
response
we are
right now.
responsive in every way to the residents in our community. I see Councilmember Ricky's hand raised.
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on with my camera. It just won't turn back on. But I just wanted to say, I tend to think that if we're concerned about the people asking questions about us, we shouldn't be putting stuff on the consent calendar. So I just think like these questions aren't that outrageous, so we should try to answer them. It's my opinion.
All right, thank you. At this point, my personal feeling is there was a lot of questions that need specific answers. And I think it's completely reasonable to lay the questions out and meet with a staff member that is always willing to meet and get those specific answers to those questions. That is not unreasonable. And every council meeting that I have attended, our staff members have been more than willing to do that and to meet with anyone offline in City Hall, make an appointment to meet with me, meet with staff, send an email, and every question gets answered, whether it is from our chief of police, our finance department, our utilities, public works. It happens over and over again, and this is no exception. So at this time, we are open to that. Please submit your questions and you will get an answer. Councilmember Ricky, did you have your hand up again?
I'm sorry, Mayor, my hand, it got stuck up.
Okay.
Sorry.
All
Motion
right,
to
all right,
approve
thank you.
consent item number 10.
All right, any other comments from council members? Seeing none, we have a motion from Vice Mayor Wright. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, second from Councilmember Scudia Brayton. Will the clerk please call the roll for item 10?
Councilmember Madrigal,
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky,
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wright,
Aye.
Councilmember Scutia Brayton,
Aye.
and Mayor Zwollen.
Aye, carries 6-0. Now we will go to item 16. This is consider approving the sole source purchase order with Star Chase for 25 global positioning system tracking units for law enforcement use for a total cost not to exceed $161,698. And welcome, Sergeant Stan.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council, City Manager. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Modesto Police Department. City of Modesto strives to continually look for innovative ideas to reduce our crime stats, to include auto theft. As a department, we are always looking for innovative technology ideas to help us reduce undue risk to our community. In 2019, we partnered with Star Chase, which was a company that provided us with the 5 products that you discussed. These units provide officers with the ability to deploy a GPS tag that sticks to the violator vehicles. Once the product is utilized, the officer can monitor without initiating a pursuit and safely monitor the vehicle from a distance. By monitoring the vehicle's movement, it allows the officers to attempt an arrest at a time and place where there is less risk to our public. Approving this items would allow the installation of 25 additional Star Chase units to better optimize our efforts and ensuring that at any given time there will be multiple Star Chase units deployed throughout our city. Currently, officers have no other available field options to track the movement of vehicles other than our air support, which is not always up and running. And is operated by the Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department. We are looking for something that's more 24/7 coverage, which this would allow us to have. As we know, pursuits are inherently dangerous to our public, and our public expects the police department to enforce laws, all the while mitigating undue risk to our citizens. With the addition of these 25 Star Chase units, officers can continue to hold violators accountable, but more importantly, reduce undue risk to our citizens. We are asking to use traffic safety funds to make this purchase this evening, Mayor.
Thank you very much for that report. Any questions from council members? Seeing none, comments from the public.
Actually, it's questions from the public. I don't know that I'll get a response. I didn't the last time. So much for transparency. My question, first of all, is we know that this can be operated by the officer with a fob. That's great. I'm curious to know whether or not it is it directed, or does it have to be lined up when the car is pulled up behind the vehicle? Can I have an answer and stop my time while I wait for it?
Sure. Great.
My
If
time's
you-
not
he's-
stopping.
Okay, he's coming to respond.
I understand, but my time
That
should
works.
stop.
Okay.
So how the device works is that the officer would need to be in a direct line of sight of the vehicle, and they would align the projectile by using a targeting system, and it would deploy to the violator vehicle from the front of the police vehicle. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Hang on a second.
No, I'll stay right here.
Thank you very much. Okay, and I was curious because I went to the website of the company and it didn't have much information, it just showed a picture. Secondly, is there
So
a
you have to address your
I
questions to us,
but my
and then
time's
his
still running.
responses
Okay, I
will
want
be
to know
best. Okay.
what the cost is to reload the system, if you will. You know, once you capture it, put it back in. Also, I'd like to know the numbers. When you look at the detail, both at the committee, which you wouldn't allow me to ask questions there, you saw my hand going up and down, but he wouldn't call on me, but that's beside the point. So I'm hoping to have some answers here. I'd like to know, I don't know if I want to bother. I'd like to know how many times exactly we've deployed this. And how many, because it suggests that it's the reason that the auto thefts have gone down, if you look at the detail, if anybody bothered. And I'd like to know how many times it stuck, and how many actual times that when we deployed it, was it actually a stolen car? That's all.
All right, thank you.
Can he come up and give us an answer now?
He's looking for the information, so
Well, this-
we have to give some time.
Okay, well, as long as you don't tell me to sit back down and come back again another day, I'll wait. But you know, it's kind of silly we're doing this. I'm sorry, sir, it's your turn. Still looking? Okay. I can talk. They don't want you to find it real quick.
We have your questions. He asked about how many
The first part of
times.
the question was the deployment of the device,
And you
what's the
can-
cost
you
for the
can
reload?
Respond to the council.
The
because
cost of the reload is there is no cost. Once the projectile is deployed, it does not damage the projectile. The officer can simply go take the projectile and reload it themselves, and it's reusable.
All right.
And the numbers of times it was actually deployed totally, the 5, the numbers of times that it actually worked, and the number of times that it actually was used on a stolen car, and we apprehended the individual. Those are all parts of what they told us in the whatever you want to call it.
Right, I think this is great information. I think I am going to choose to give you some time, Officer Stanfield, to get this information. Take your time. We'll move on, and then you can get your.
I have it.
Okay.
I have most of that information.
Okay, great.
So since the pilot program started in 2019 with the 5 devices that we put into use, we've deployed 35 times. We've had 28 arrested individuals as a result of those 35 deployments. And we did see a consistent rise in subjects arrested for auto theft, while we also saw an overall a decrease in the occurrences of auto theft. So we were seeing arrests go up and auto thefts go down. So we've deployed 35 times. I don't have the number tonight of how many deployments were not effective or how many of those 35 were actually stolen, but the purpose of the deployments is to utilize them for stolen vehicles.
All right, thank you very much for that information.
And I thank you very much for your time. And again, if Scotty hadn't ignored the hand going up and down in the committee meeting, this would have been done.
All right, any comments, any further comments from the public? Seeing none, any?
Chris has a comment.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Oh, I know, we're going to council next. We were still with the public.
I'm sorry.
That's all right, no problem. All right, I don't see anyone else from the public with their hand raised either online or in person, so we'll go to council. Councilmember Ricky.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that it's been it's been very impressive, the work that the police department's done to decrease car thefts in our community over the last couple of years. We've gone from being a top 5 car theft community to being barely in the top 20, and I'm confident by deploying systems like this, we're going to be able to get out of that top 20 really soon. And that's even though we are still having problems with staffing at PD. So we need to continue to explore technologies like this. And this is an example of PD working hard to employ technology to make our community better. And so this is the kind of direction I think we need to continue to explore.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments from council members? Councilmember
General-
Scooty of Brayton?
This is an opportunity for general comments?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to speak to the various events that I have the honor and privilege
Oh,
of
excuse
attending.
me. Oh, no, we're still on this item 16.
Okay,
Consent
that's
item
what I thought.
16.
Okay, all right.
Comments on item 16, consent item 16.
Motion to approve on item 16.
All right. This is a resolution approving the sole source purchase order with Star Chase for 25 global positioning system tracking units for law enforcement use for a total cost not to exceed $161,698 and authorizing the purchasing manager or her designee to issue the purchase order. And we have a motion from Vice Mayor Wright. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Madrigal,
I do not-
Councilmember Madrigal.
Very important.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Can you unmute, Tony?
I've asked him to unmute. I'm unable to unmute him directly.
Okay, we're unable to
Oh, he's unmuted.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. Aye?
Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Scutia Brayton.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwallen.
Aye, so it carries 6-0. Thank you very much. Next is council comments and reports. Do any of the council members have any comments and reports? And I believe Councilmember Scutia Brayton has a comment.
Indeed, I'm sorry I was overzealous there. As I was saying, I had the privilege of attending a few community events this past week, which really warmed my heart and really brought out and reminded me just about the beauty of what is Modesto. I won't say them all because it's the list is lengthy, but I just wanted to highlight just a few. I attended the Assyrian Youth Celebration, and this is a group of young people that really give back to their community in charitable contribution and just hard work and sweat. So it was just amazing to celebrate the success of that program with that community. Also, I attended as many of the other council members did as well, a community event in support of the Ukrainian people. So the solidarity, a world community felt locally. It was a great event to participate in. Also had the opportunity to participate and speak at the Latino Leadership Initiative. And it was such an impressive group of young adults. They are our future, and it was just humbling to be able to share some time with them. The last event I'll mention is, of course, the grand opening of our very own Dave & Buster's, the latest arcade / sports center restaurant that opened up finally after 3 years of much anticipation at our Vintage Fair Mall. If you haven't been, I encourage you to do so. Take your earplugs because it is loud. But all these events and community forums were just, again, it showed that Modesto is alive. It has community and celebration and unity. We come in all different shapes and sizes. That it was a lovely week, very active, and it got the community out. My only regret was that I wasn't able to attend all of them, and one of the ones that I deeply regret was First Fridays. They're back, so I look forward to attending that next month on the first Friday. That's it, Mayor. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Ricky.
Thank you, Mayor. I also really enjoyed the Ukrainian benefit. It was great to see some of my fellow council members there. And I love how our community came together for that. So that was really wonderful. Also, today is election day. Local elections really matter. So if you haven't cast your vote yet, it's still okay. You got some time still. You know, my wife and I, we drop off our ballots right at our O'Brien supermarket right here in District 3. You can just walk down there and put it in the box. Or you can also go to the election office, I think until 8 o'clock. So super cool. So if you haven't voted yet, do it. You still got time. I also wanted to talk a little bit about some of our homeless issues. I know we're all really concerned about what's going on there. I just wanted to give a quick update. I'm really hopeful that we can start the approval process for safe parking soon. I've heard that's going to happen this month at a committee meeting, so kind of getting that process started. So assuming it all works out, I really think this is kind of it's an important step. It also looks like our ranger program is going to launch sometime later this summer. So I'm obviously pretty eager to see that deployed and, you know, getting our parks patrolled on a more regular basis. I'm also really hopeful that we can kind of continue expanding our homeless assistance programs, kind of to help and include a parks team that cleans up park bathrooms and trash on a regular basis. I think it would really improve quality of life here. And kind of along those same lines, you know, one of the things that I think Modesto, like we as a city, are pretty bad at is telling people what we're doing to help solve problems in our community. And I think that's especially true when you're talking about homelessness. We've had some pretty big successes in our community, especially with really great partnerships that resulted in things like the Kansas House, like the workforce housing project that's happening over at the Clarion, all the services and shelter that are being provided at Bavarian and Gospel Mission. You know, all this stuff, it's really great. And it's doing a lot of good in our community, but there's just a lot more to do. So safe parking, safe camping, more housing, all these things have to be priorities. And I know we're not going to give up on them. A couple other issues that are being worked on, you know, we're working on an ordinance to police abandoned commercial buildings. And I'm kind of talking about these eyesores like the Save Mart on Pellendale, the old abandoned Save Mart on Pellendale, the old Orchard Supply on Sisk, or the Toys R Us over there. You know, a lot of these buildings, they're still collecting rent even though they're abandoned. You know, so we need commercial landlords to be responsible for their properties. And so I'm hopeful that we can finalize a draft on that soon so we can discuss it here at council. I'm also working on pushing through an ordinance to help our neighbors on Gear Court and across McHenry over on Helen and Francis that are being impacted by auto inventory being parked in front of their houses. I see this as a real misuse of neighborhoods, and it just isn't okay for the communities around Gear Court, but it also isn't okay for auto dealers to do this in any part of Modesto. So I'm looking forward to seeing progress on an ordinance to prevent that, you know, in the future. And thanks for the time, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Knoyer.
The one thing that I miss because of my physical condition is attending all the openings, because that was something I really enjoyed. And I think it was something that the people who open new businesses feel very honored when they're recognized. And the only one that I was able to attend was for the Ukraine. And that was really a wonderful get together and well done. And it shows that within a few months, something like that to be put together. Hopefully, before my tenure ends, I will be able to again attend more openings, which I truly miss. But that's it.
All right, thank you. I will just make one comment about, I was honored to be invited by the Modesto Police Department to attend the follow-through, the rest of the story with the 10K with the cop, where money is raised to transition children's bedrooms from their sometimes humble homes into beautiful places for them to rest and study with brand new paint, beds, furniture, and to see the children, it's unveiled as a surprise to them. So they walk into the room, and I believe every one of them that I saw, literally the children ran and flopped on top of their bed, jumped on top of the bed. They just could not believe it. The smiles on their faces were delightful, and every one of them just was thank you so much and appreciating so much gratitude. So that was actually one of the highlights of my life that I will forever remember and cherish. So I appreciate all the efforts that our staff is doing to strengthen relationships with everyone in our community. All right, Councilmember Wright, or Vice Mayor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I was able to attend yesterday Airport Neighborhood Collaborative Summer Community Potluck in the Airport District, and it's neat to see the neighbors there coming together, and our Parks Department was out there helping out, and other county people were there. And it's a neighborhood that really needs a lot of help, and I'm glad to see that we're going to be helping with, working with the county, putting sidewalks in some of the areas that need to be. Also, it is nice to see a report that we have 3,500 new housing projects that are started with multi-family homes, single homes, and also affordable housing that's in the pipeline. And it's great to see developers wanting to come here and really help us in our housing situation. Also, this morning at 7 o'clock, Good Day Sacramento was at the museum, Graffiti Museum. Some of us got up early to be there and greet them, and Chris Murphy did a great job on, it took about 10 minutes talking about Modesto, the great things that are happening in this city this week. And we're all looking forward to 105-degree weather on Friday, and God help us.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a great time this morning, and you can go on to Good Day Sacramento's website and see the interview and everything. A lot of cars down there, some new cars that I haven't seen there before, and it's going to be a great week for Modesto. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Scooty Brayton?
I'm sorry, Mayor. We would be remiss if we didn't mention our very own Jenny Knoyer will be honored at this year's Graffiti Festival and Parade as Grand Marshal. So that is quite an honor bestowed on Councilmember Knoyer. So congratulations.
Yes, congratulations, Jenny. I was going to mention that, so thank you for that. And I hope that everyone will enjoy the graffiti festivities. Jenny and David and I are old enough to remember the days of the cruising, the real cruising. So it'll be fun.
Well, I met my wife down on McHenry, so you know it was cruising on a Saturday night. So
all right,
yeah, back in the early '70s.
And I just was waiting till our next council meeting to say how honored and humbled I am by the accolades that I've been receiving. And to be Grand Marshal is really one of the highlights, or it is the highlight. And then the fact that I'm going to be placed on the Fame of Walk, I will have my own plaque. It's just beyond anything I could have believed that would have happened to me when I started on the council 9 years ago. So anyway, yes, it's going to be very warm, but people are just dying to get out, and I think the weather is not going to stop them. So I will be waving and saying hello, and we'll be in the parade, and conserving my energy. That's why I'm not at the meeting. And we'll see you on Wednesday and Friday.
Thank you, Jenny. All right, any other comments or reports from council members? Seeing none, we will go on to city manager comments and reports. Does the city manager? No comments. Next on the agenda is hearings. Item 18, a hearing to consider and approve the final proposed fiscal year 2022-2023 operating a multi-year budget and capital improvement program for the city and related resolutions. Welcome, Stephen Christensen.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. So tonight we are going to go through the hearing for the adoption of the fiscal year 22-23 operating budget and the multi-year budget and the capital improvement program. So to start it off, the city manager will go through a brief introduction for this year's budget.
Thank you, Steve. And thank you, Mayor and Council. I consider it a privilege to submit the proposed fiscal year 22-23 City of Modesto operating capital improvement budget. I feel it's important that I take a few extra minutes tonight so we can have an honest conversation about the city's finances. We anticipate yet another shortfall of $8.1 million for fiscal year 22-23. This calls for another round of staffing and service reductions to an organization and city that can ill afford it. Since the Great Recession nearly 15 years ago, and despite the increases in service demand since then, We have decimated this once modestly funded organization by cutting 27% of the staffing in general fund departments, with most of those cuts being to the public safety departments. The reductions in staffing have resulted in service reductions that are detrimental to the city and achieving the council's goals. Public safety is now 80% of the general fund operating expenditures, and we cannot avoid making more cuts to public safety to balance our general fund budget. Our current budget deficit is systemic and it's ongoing, and it will continue to increase over time. We are proposing to do what we have done in this budget, what we have done in the last 10 years, using one-time resources to delay the inevitable for one more year and continuing to eliminate services and our investments in our critical infrastructure. Since the Great Recession, the city has been using these strategies as the go-to for balancing the budget. Our current service levels are not adequate for the state's 19th largest city and the 108th largest in the country. This is not what the citizens of Modesto deserve, and definitely not what they need. We can no longer afford further cuts in services. Furthermore, some of our city's assets are not properly maintained, and they're showing it, which is detrimental to everyone's quality of life. Some may ask, how did we get here? Well, quite simply, our general fund revenue base is simply not robust enough to support appropriate service levels that our citizens expect and deserve, and to also maintain our public assets. For the city of Modesto, it took 10 full years for our revenues to recover from the Great Recession. Meanwhile, during this 10-year period, the cost of doing business increased, even while numerous concessions from our employees were made. This means our revenues have never caught up with our costs, which is why we're still down 27% staffing, and we will continue to barely maintain current service levels, let alone improve upon them. These cuts will continue beyond fiscal year 22-23 as one-time funding from areas like the American Rescue Plan Act expire. Once these funding sources run dry, we'll have to make larger service reductions in fiscal year 23-24 and beyond. The recently completed study by Management Partners found the following when comparing Modesto to 7 other similarly situated cities. Our general fund revenues per capita are 30% less than the average of other benchmark cities. Modesto's sales and property tax make up a smaller share of our general fund than any other benchmark city. Our sales tax revenue is 61% less than the average of our benchmark cities and is growing at a slower rate. Due to our reduced revenue sources, it translates to fewer services that can be provided by the general fund. In fact, general fund expenditures per capita are 36% less than the peer average. And if you remove public safety, Modesto's general fund expenditures per capita are 87% less than the peer average. This last number underscores a stark difference in funding non-public safety functions such as park and recreation, code enforcement, economic development, finance, human resources, just to name a few. Due to the Great Recession and its residual effects, we dramatically cut staffing, operating expenditures, and services just to live within our means. We are not functioning as a full-service city. It is on all of us to be transparent about the facts and explain the choices going forward. Doing nothing needs to be a conscious choice producing certain outcomes. I contend that sitting still is not an option. Our long-range forecast suggests our finances keep moving, the deficit continues to increase, and our unacceptable service levels will only get worse. We could no longer look the other way. The budget must be honestly balanced each year with our eyes wide open. We have somewhat quietly and gradually reduced services to dramatic lows that are the detriment to our citizens. We will continue to professionally manage our city's finances, but if we are hit with another harsh recession, the options will be very limited and they will be severe. Recessions have historically come every 7 years, and economic indicators point to one on the horizon. So in closing, and to restate, our budget estimates a shortfall of $8.1 million for fiscal year 22-23. Given that 80% of the general fund departmental budget is public safety, and the fact that non-safety programs have been reduced so deeply, we either must eliminate some programs and/or departments altogether or continue to cut our already depleted public safety. We have staved off this decision for one more year with one-time reductions, freezing vacant positions, and using one-time funds that will no longer be available beyond this fiscal year. I truly believe we as a city and as an organization are at an inflection point. We're at a point where we must make a very difficult and what could be unpopular decision. Yes, we have been good public stewards, and we have tried to live within our means, but that has come at the detriment to the services we provide to this great community. We have professionally and methodically shrunk the organization to live within our means. Accordingly, later this month, we'll be bringing an item for council consideration to place on a ballot measure on the November 22 election to address the city's critical needs. The potential 1 cent sales tax measure could generate approximately $39 million annually that will help maintain or improve current service levels of fire and police, including neighborhood patrol, crime prevention, traffic, and rapid 911 response. These funds could also be used to address our ongoing homeless crisis, restore and maintain our parks, as well as our other infrastructure needs such as our urban forestry, recreation facilities, and sidewalks, and keep our public areas safe and clear of trash and litter. These funds would require independent citizen oversight, mandatory financial audits, and yearly updates to council to ensure that all voter-approved funds are spent as promised. The City of Modesto needs local control over local funds for our local needs. Having voter-approved funding at the 1 cent tax rate will address these needs while keeping all funds local and ensuring that no funds can be taken by Sacramento. If we address our finances, I'm confident we can pursue the council's vision and accomplish so much more. Our citizens will feel safe in their city and on their streets. Citizens will have a responsive and reinvigorated public safety system. Citizens will see a major dent in our homeless challenge in our parks and in our streets. Citizens will see our park system return to the once proud system that they will enjoy and want to take their children to experience. Citizens will see us get an aggressive jump on blight before it sprouts on public and private property. We will embark on a Modesto Renaissance to truly provide the quality service that our citizens need and they deserve. My thanks to those who are responsible for the preparation of this budget. This document represents a tremendous amount of time and effort, particularly by the city's budget division. I'd like to recognize our budget manager, Steve Christensen, all of our department directors, and key members of their staff. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to the City Council for its continued support of our city workforce. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Steve.
Thank you, Joe. So now I'm going to go through some of the actual numbers behind this proposed operating budget. We're going to start off with the general fund. Actually, let me step back. Let's talk about the budget process timeline. So speaking of some of the work that went through this budget to build the budget, looking back, we start this budget process. It says October and March, but we actually start a little bit earlier than that for the budget team. But October through March, that's really where all of the work is done to create this budget. So the operating budgets are created, the capital, non-capital budgets are created. This is where all the department work and the budget division work is done to create this operating budget and the capital budgets that are here before you tonight. In April is where the council, the finance committee really gets involved. That's where we have the budget committee workshops, the presentation of the draft budget, which is that document prior to the mayor making any final budget modifications. We held the meetings for the finance committee budget workshops April 19th through the 21st. Then in May, we had the mayor's final budget modifications to combine the draft budget into the proposed budget. And then we also set the hearing date for tonight, which is what we're doing right now. So we're having the hearing to adopt the proposed budget. Now I want to get into some of the numbers for the general fund proposed budget. As we look forward into 22-23, some of the columns that you'll want to pay attention to are the fiscal year 22-23 draft budget, which is the third column to the left. And then you have the adjustments and reductions, and then the proposed budget. So again, as Joe mentioned, we have a proposed, or prior to any reductions, any adjustments, we had a revenue budget of $166.5 million. That's our total revenue budget before we had any adjustments. a total expenditure budget of $174.6 million. So we had a deficit of $8.18 million. That's a shortfall we were looking into before we did anything. Fully loaded budgets, fully loaded revenue budgets going into this operating budget. We do have some adjustments in here. We have some additional revenues in the departments, and then we also had the $4.5 million from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund. That's from the second allocation of the ARPA funds that we're using to balance some of this budget in 22-23. Now, if you look at the revenues on their own, you look at these and say, hey, Steve, these revenues are going up from the previous year. These look pretty good. You can see that our property tax is increasing from the prior year, sales tax is going up, business license and mill tax. So a lot of our revenues are increasing, but the problem that we have, the problem we've had the last 5 years, is that our revenues are not increasing at the same pace as our expenditures. So it's really that our expenditure growth is outpacing our revenues. It cannot keep up with all the expenditure growth we have for salaries and benefits, discretionary expenditures, all of that. We don't have enough to cover it. So that's where we get into the shortfall each year. Really, the saving grace in the last 2 fiscal years, what the city manager mentioned, has been the ARPA funds. If we did not have those funds, that's $8.5 million in the last 2 fiscal years. Cuts would have been drastic. We would have had huge, deep cuts in the last 2 fiscal years across the general fund departments. As we go into the expenditure budgets, you'll see a majority of the budget, almost 80% of just the operating, the total department expenses is public safety. So it's going to be police and fire. So that would have been an additional, over the last 2 years, $8.5 million that would have had to come from some of these departments. And again, with the majority of those budgets being police and fire, a large portion of that probably would have had to come from those departments. So again, saving grace, ARPA funds in the last 2 fiscal years that we were able to use those to offset COVID-related labor expenses. If you look at the adjustments and reduction column in 22-23, that second column from my right, maybe your left, Scotty's highlighting it there. You can see that we have heavy reductions in police and fire. Now, a lot of these are going to be one-time reductions. As Joe mentioned, we have frozen positions. So in the police department, we have 8 frozen positions that are vacant. They're all vacant positions, so we're freezing them for 1 fiscal year. We have reductions in the fire department to their discretionary expenses. Again, we have frozen positions in Parks and Rec, CED, the city manager's office, and then other discretionary reductions across the other departments. But again, you see a total of reductions of the $3.2 million. The rest of the adjustments that are made up, we have a variance rate that we have is about 5%. Now what that is a calculated savings that we know we're going to have vacancies throughout the year. So we calculate a vacancy rate plus a savings that we know departments will have in terms of discretionary expenses. So that makes up our total variance rate. So between the variance rate and the total department expenses, as well as the additional revenue, we had total departmental savings of about $8.19 million, which we'll see on the next page. For transfers out for this fiscal year, we're budgeting about $7.85 million. Transfers out from the general fund are used to pay for things like the debt service on this building. We also have some obligations to other funds for loan repayments and things like that, or that are obligations from the general fund. We also have subsidies to other funds like the Center Plaza Fund, the Golf Fund, that are used to help pay for expenses in those funds as well. So this is kind of an overall view at the general fund pro forma to look at our reserve levels. The column to pay attention to is the last column here for the proposed budget for 22-23. So you can see our total revenues in red and then our total expenses in green. So 171.4 million, 171.37 million. So we had a total surplus and deficit at the end with all of our reductions and adjustments. of 55.83, or excuse me, $55,000. When you look at our ending fund balances there, you can see that we still have some carryover. So we have about an estimate of $4 million in carryover. Now that carryover is something that we'll bring an item to next fiscal year for council to take action on. Because again, that carryover is something that council has to decide what they want to do. Right now, it's just sitting as unassigned, again, not knowing what the future is going to hold, with the recession possibly looming in 22-23. Some estimates that I've seen with economic indicators are showing that it could happen as early as January of 23. So that's something that we haven't brought an item to, but we will bring an item to council to propose options for that unassigned fund balance or carryover. This is just an overview real quick of how we covered that shortfall. So again, we were looking at $166.5 million in total revenues, $174.6 million at the very beginning before we did anything. So we had an $8.1 million shortfall. We had some adjustments. There were some adjustments in the police department that were added to modify the budget. So we had a $8.18 million shortfall. In terms of what we did to close that shortfall, we had some increased revenues for departmental revenues. There were 11 vacant positions that were frozen for $1.52 million. Discretionary reductions across the departments. We also had some departmental position savings between the fire department and the vacant positions in the auditor's office. Those are only being held vacant for a portion of the year, not the full year. And then we also had a workers' compensation rate reduction that is across the general fund and all other non-general funds as well. That saved the general fund about $860,000. And then we had the $4.5 million in the ARPA funds as well. So we had total reduction savings of $8.19 million. Looking at the non-general funds, we'll just talk about them in terms of overall operating budgets. Internal service funds, again, these are made up of our IT fund, our fleet fund, a lot of our insurance funds, workers' compensation, employee benefits funds. $93 million between all of those. A bulk of them are going to be in fleet, the insurance funds. The water fund, $67.1 million. Again, these are just the operating. These are not the capital improvement side of things. The wastewater fund was $60.7 million. And then you can see other funds, the surface transportation fund as well. One of the things to point out that we will be monitoring as we go through next year are the Gulf Fund and the Center Plaza Fund, as well as the Parking Fund. During COVID, these funds, the Center Plaza Fund and the Parking Fund in particular, had some funding issues with Center Plaza obviously being shut down for COVID, not getting rental revenue coming in. So subsidies had to go up to the Center Plaza Fund from the general fund. We'll be monitoring as we go through next fiscal year. Parking Fund, same thing. Lack of people using the garages and the parking lots throughout the city or downtown area in particular. Revenues going down, subsidy had to come in from the general fund to pay for that shortfall in the revenues. So we'll be monitoring those. The Golf Fund was actually a high performer. There's Lori in the audience. So COVID shut down a lot of things and activities to do, so golf rounds went up as an outside activity for people to go do. So golfing has gone up, and it's maintaining that right now. So golf is on the rise. So total non-general funds, $336.6 million. If you added the general fund, we have a total operating budget for the city of about $508 million. So quite a big budget for the city of Modesto. Our capital improvement program. So this year we have 196 total projects. 23 of them are classified as new projects that are increasing the total budget for the CIP of about $32.5 million. Here is the breakdown of those new projects. Majority of them are going to be in our streets CIP projects and then our capital grants as well. In terms of dollars and the number of projects, you can see $16.9 million coming from the capital grant CIP projects. And then also in the streets projects and then the sewer operations projects with $5.8 million. And then before we go on to the staff recommendations, I'd be happy to answer any questions that council might have about the operating budgets or capital budgets.
All right. Does council have any questions of staff? Councilmember Ricky.
Thanks, Mayor. I think I have a couple questions here. If we're unable to pass, additional funding, down the road here, looking forward, how do you think current spending levels are going to impact our ability to fund, for example, our fire services in Modesto?
So,
like trajectory-wise, I'm trying to ask you to tell me what it looks like. Like, where are we at?
So looking out in terms of our future forecast, we have a 5-year and a 10-year. Our costs go up pretty high. So they're going to increase substantially over the next 5 years, where our expenditures and are exceeding our revenues almost exponentially as we go out the next 5 years. So we're getting to the point where in, I believe it's 25, so fiscal year 25, where we eat all of our reserves to where we have no reserves anymore and we're in the negative completely. So at that point, you're talking, I don't want to say the word bankruptcy because that's if we do nothing. Obviously, we would make reductions and handle that before we get to a bankruptcy situation, as we've done in the past. That's if we did nothing. But if we did nothing, we would get to that point where in fiscal year 24, 25, we would have no reserves left.
I guess what I'm trying, and that totally makes sense, and that's what I'm seeing. So, I just wanted to kind of get your opinion, obviously we wouldn't want to go to that level of, that would be bad. We don't want to be bankrupt. But what kind of reduction level would we have to do to let's ward that away. Right. What kind of cuts do you think we would need to do to make sure that we didn't do that?
So from my estimates, I think we're going to be looking at anywhere between the 10 to 15% reductions overall in departments.
And I'll also chime in here, Councilmember Ricky. It's important to remember that our budget is 80% public safety. So if we are to reduce our expenditures to our revenue levels, a majority of those cuts are going to come from our public safety departments. That includes police and fire. So we have very little to cut in non-public safety departments. If we were to truly balance the budget, it would basically be the elimination of all non-public safety functions to an extent, because there still needs to be internal servicing of the public safety departments. But then not only that, but then there would also be reductions to public safety.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that would be a decision we'd have to make, is where that 15% is going to come from. But that's a little bit disconcerting. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Joe.
We would have to make a decision of what kind of city do we want to be? Do we want to be a city that only provides public safety services? That will be a decision point for the council at some point down the road if those kinds of decisions are not made.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from council members?
I do have a question, Mayor.
Councilmember Scooty Brayton.
With our general fund emergency reserve being 18.4 million, has it ever been that low?
That's actually the highest it's been.
It's the highest it's been.
Since before the Great Recession.
Okay. And is this a moderate or a low reserve compared to other municipalities?
I would say it's low only because, other cities do have more, but if I'm speaking honestly, other cities do have augmentations to their sales tax and higher property taxes if they're a Bay Area or a LA city. So they do have higher revenues coming in to pay for their general fund services. One of the other things too, though, is that one of the recommended levels that we try to get to, we're not there yet, is the GFOA recommended level for your general fund, which is 2 months of operating expenditures, which we're just short of, I think, at this time, with the 18.4 million if we round up.
Okay. You kind of alluded to a scary possibility, but did I understand you correctly? If for some reason, worst case scenario, I'm generally not a worst case scenario person, but if the recession were to hit us and we were not the community was not successful on the measure proposed for the ballot, would our only recourse be to dip into our emergency reserve funds?
That wouldn't be the only recourse. I mean, obviously, we would look at reductions and things like that, determining if we want to balance the budget through reductions, but they would be heavy reductions to the general fund departments.
And this would be the critical decision point that council would have to make. I'm sure there would be some balancing of both the reserves and service level reductions, but that can only last for so long. At some point, the reserves will be gone, will be deemed cash insolvent, and at that point, we're looking at a whole different scenario going forward.
With multiple negative impacts, I would imagine.
I fear to think about what the impacts would be.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from council members? All right, comments or questions from the public regarding item 18?
Emerson Drake again. You're still going to address the unfunded pension liability policy, correct? Because I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hang on a second. You know, what we heard just the last few moments, revenue's up, spending's up even higher. We talked about Modesto Center Plaza. You know, we've been, pre-COVID, we were 900,000 every year, year after year, because of a lousy contract that we have for catering with the DoubleTree. Everybody knows that. Council after council. This council already ignored the fact and refused to change it. You just rubber stamped it and everything was good to go. We have, has the spending outpaced the revenue? Yeah. Why? Because we don't address some of our shortfalls. We've passed out raises all around. You know, it was just a few years ago when the MPOA, the Modesto Police Officers Association, took a vote. And they said, do you want to raise, or do you want us to cut the, maintain, or do you want us to, excuse me, do you want to raise and we'll have to cut the younger officers, or do you want to maintain everybody? They voted to cut the younger officers and get the raise. You know, it's almost as if this city council has decided to run headlong into this, not holding back our spending, not controlling even the timeliness of it, instead of waiting till just at the end of the fiscal year to bomb us with prices or with invoices. But you've ignored the chances we've had prior to this to be fiscally responsible. Completely. And yet you're going to come to the public and ask for a tax increase. Well, you know, maybe the only good thing about these tax increases is that every time we've turned one down, we get a new city manager. That's a fact too. It's kind of interesting. Just history, that's all, people. I know some of us don't like to teach history, but that's history. But what I would like is, I didn't understand, I didn't even hear you say it, but if you did, how we're going to address the council's unfunded pension liability policy. What is that? Because for 4 years we heard Mayor Brandvold warn us time after time after time about our unfunded pension liabilities. And we turned a blind eye to it. 4 people on the council drove their feet. They didn't want to address it. Why? Because 3 of them were running for office. And nobody wants to come at a time like that. Nobody. So we ignored it till we ran into a wall. And then you threaten us with cutting the police department, after we pass out raise after raise after raise. Now, if you could tell me about our policy, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
I'd first like to address some of those comments. It is untrue that we have not done anything to address our unfunded pension liability. In fact, our employee groups have stepped up and made additional contributions so that we can make additional discretionary payments to address that unfunded liability. Our employees are doing that. Not only that, but this council has made decisions to make additional discretionary payments. We've set up a 115 trust to make future pension payments in the event that we need to for both our pension liability and our other post-employee benefits, basically our retiree medical. So I completely disagree with your assertion that this council has turned a blind eye to addressing those needs as we continue to look at ways of funding the unfunded pension liability in partnership with our employee groups who have continued to take less than what our surrounding communities have given.
All right, thank you. Christina, I see you stepping up too, if you wanted to make a comment.
Good evening, Council. I just wanted to address the unfunded pension policy that is coming forward with our budget. And so this policy basically is a policy of commitment from the council and from the city that we are going to look at different ways to mitigate our unfunded accrued liability for CalPERS. And so it outlines the different strategies that we're going to take and explore as we move forward. City Manager Joe Lopez mentioned a couple of those already. So we've, set up a trust to be able to put funds away whenever we get really high payments coming to us. We've worked with our employee groups, and they've done above and beyond what they need to do to help us out. And we're going to continue to look at year after year different strategies to be able to mitigate the unfunded accrued liability. Given our budget constraints that we have, we have to be a little creative with the way we do that. And so this pension policy really just outlines the different things that we're going to be looking at hopefully doing in the future.
Right, thank you very much. Appreciate those comments and clarification. Any other comments from the public? I don't see any online or in person. So any comments from council members? All right, Councilmember Ricky.
Thanks, Mayor. This is actually, I think Emerson's point's it's very interesting. But I think I had some similar questions when I first was elected to the council. How is it that we, when you look at our expenses, how is it that they jump so much every year, and how does that work? And a lot of the challenges that we have as a city is that we're not just competing with Modesto, right? If you're a police officer or a firefighter, you also have options to go to other cities, right? And so if our salaries and benefits aren't comparable to our neighbors, then we're not able to keep staff, right? And we're not able to hire staff. And so we can't just freeze salaries. It's just not an option. And there's also legal reasons why we can't do that. So there's a lot more to this than just then the answer is simple, because it just isn't. It's very complicated, and we're impacted by things totally out of our control that impact our salaries and our budget in a way that, I remember Steve, you and I had this conversation when I first started, and I was like, what the heck is going on here? And then you showed me, and I was like, wow, this is really complicated, and there's so many elements out of our control that impact our budget that we're having to deal with. That's just the way it is.
All right, any other comments from council members? Seeing none, we'll come back to staff for the recommendations, and then I will read the resolutions.
Okay, and then I just want to say thank you to all the departments. This is my last chance to talk before you'll never see me again until next budget cycle. Not never again. You just don't see me until next budget cycle.
Really?
So again, thank you to all the departments for all their hard work, all the directors, Joe and the deputy city managers, council, mayor, all my staff, all the budget division staff, Wilson, Casey, Marvin, Paul. He's no longer at the city, but thank you, Paul, for all your hard work too. So again, thank you for letting me speak about the budget. I know it's a little dry sometimes. But yes, we have staff recommendations for you. I won't read these because I think Mayor and maybe the city clerk want to read them instead. But these are all the recommended actions before you for this item.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
So we have a resolution approving the adoption of fiscal year 2022-23 annual and multi-year operating budgets and the 2022-23 capital improvement program for the City of Modesto and the related interfund transfers. Sorry, I'm just making sure Loretta gets out of here okay too. Take your time. Take your time. Also, a resolution approving the budget principles policy on workers' compensation fund for fiscal year 2022-23, and the operating budget policy is outlined in the fiscal year 2022-23 final proposed budget. Resolution amending the position allocation for fiscal year 2022-23 as adopted in the operating budget. Resolution amending the classification plan for the City of Modesto to create the classification of police administrator. Resolution approving a leave bank purchase option for Modesto City employees, Modesto Confidential and Management Association, and Modesto Police and Fire Non-Sworn Association, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute the transactions. Resolution adopting the council unfunded pension liability policy. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the recommendations.
All right, we have a motion from Vice Mayor Wright. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Escutia Brayton. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Madrigal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Escutia Brayton.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwellen.
Aye, so it carries 6-0. Thank you very much, Stephen, for your presentation. Next on the agenda is new business. This is item 19. Consider approving a successor memorandum of understanding between the City of Modesto and Modesto City Firefighters Association for a term of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2024, granting salary changes and benefit offerings to non-sworn, unrepresented management and confidential employees, including charter officers, executives, and unrepresented sworn fire employees, and rescinding resolution numbers 2020-310, -310 and 2021-346. And welcome Christina Alger.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Christina Alger, Director of Human Resources. So I am here to bring forward an item for Modesto City Firefighters Association for a successor agreement. So just a little bit of background to begin with. So their original MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, was effective July 1st of 2019 through June 30th of 2021. And so at that time, we negotiated and agreed on wages and working conditions. The next bout, we actually had concession bargaining during the pandemic, and so out of that concession bargaining, we did agree to a one-year extension of their MOU to defer the actual full negotiations through the pandemic downturn. And so that extension was July 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2022, and so their current contract is getting ready to expire at the end of this month. So a little discussion here. The City of Modesto and Modesto City Firefighters Association, or MCFFA, met in good faith per our Myers-Brown Act, or MMBA, which requires us to do so. We began meetings in January. Teams met a total of 8 times. And between the MCFFA and the city, we addressed interests on both sides as we had discussions of a tentative agreement. So we did reach a tentative agreement on May 19th of 2022, and that's the agreement that I am bringing forward tonight. The membership did ratify this agreement on June 2nd of 2022. The proposed term for this new agreement is a 2-year term, July 1st of 2022 through June 30th of 2024. So the agreement includes a few different things, and so First of all, an additional step added to the salary schedule, and so with this, it would be an additional step. Typically, positions have ranges and they have steps, and so it's typically a 5-step system. This would be proposing to add an additional step to their system, effective July 1st of 2023. So not in this current year that's coming up, but the following year. There are also enhancements to the education and incentive and certification incentives. They had these previously, and so there was a little bit of an enhancement here. Their associate's degree would go to from a 2 to a 2.5%, and then their bachelor's incentive would go from a 3.5% to a 5%. They're also in the certification area giving back the 1% that they had for their fire science fire officer certification, and instead adding 0.5% per certificate for a maximum of 2.5% total incentive for incentives that are for certificates that they obtain, and there's a list listed in the TA. And then there's a little enhancement to their longevity incentive, and this is to help with retention. So taking the 10-year service from 1.5% to 2%, taking the 15 years of service from 3 to 3.5%, and taking the 20 years of service to from 4 to 5. And then finally, we're proposing a health insurance contribution increase. And so typically every year, the premiums for health insurance, they go up, as we're all aware. And so this would be taking a portion of that and giving more city contribution to kind of absorb some of that increase. And so it would be a 4% city contribution increase for the 2 years of the contract. Now, traditionally, unrepresented employees of a particular unit, they get like we call a Me Too clause, and so consistent with historical practices, the proposed terms and conditions of employment for the unrepresented fire chiefs are to be consistent with those agreed with MCFFA, which include the salary, the education and certification, and longevity, but not the health insurance. So just a little bit about the fiscal impact. This is the actual MCFFA group. This table shows you the 2-year contract and what the cost would be. Something to note, we do have contracted services with City of Oakdale, Oakdale Fire District, and the City of Ceres. And so we do get revenues in from those contracts, which offset some of these costs. And so you can see the total contract net cost would be about $1.2 million. However, the first year, which is this coming fiscal year, taking out the contract, our total cost for them would actually only be $227.09, including our unrepresented. So unrepresented, this is our chart for that. You can see that it's about $231,000 for the 2-year term. However, we have contract recovery. The net cost here is $192. And again, that first year cost, if you take MCFFA and unrepresented together, factor in the contract revenues that we get, the total cost for this coming year is only $227,109. So the fiscal impact, I've given you a combined here between MCFFA and unrepresented, the net cost of 1.4 for the entire 2 years. If council approves this action, an item will be brought back to council at a future date with the budget action to appropriate the funds from the general fund to cover this contract. And so our staff recommendation tonight is a resolution approving a proposed agreement, including language changes for the successor agreement. And you already actually read all this, so I'm going to read it all again. But I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Does council have any questions of staff? All right, seeing none, we'll open to the public. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward to speak regarding item 19? All right, welcome.
Good evening, members of the council. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Just the other day, I had the opportunity to do a 24-hour ride-along with the fire department. And I would like to say that we have a group of fine men particularly in that Station 1, that did an awesome job. They went to calls that really they didn't need to go to calls, because someone called and said someone was laying on the ground and that person was dead. I would adjure or comment to the citizens of Modesto that let's help the fire department not go to calls that are unnecessary. But my point tonight is that they were gentlemen. They waited on the call. They respected each one of the calls, even though we were just getting ready to eat, and we were called away. We went to the call. We weren't needed, thankfully, but we went back. It was the attitude of our firefighters that impressed me greatly. Even working in Station 1, which definitely needs to be remodeled, that's a question and a comment for another time. But I'm so proud that we have the firefighters in this community that do the work above and beyond and treat everyone as citizens of Modesto.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from members of the public?
Emerson Drake again. So the total increase is 1.4 mil?
Do you want to clarify that? Yes.
Yeah. Right, for the two-year contract. Okay.
Yes.
I just, and to address earlier comments, well, some attempts have been made to ameliorate the oncoming wave of red. I would suggest they're totally ineffective. And the only thing I didn't hear before and I didn't hear now is when it comes to our budget and our reserves, doesn't the Bank of America insist that we keep a certain amount in reserve? No, they don't do that anymore? Because they used to insist on that in order to have the letter of credit. Very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to address item 19? Seeing none, any comments from council? Do not see any at this time. So, Councilmember Ricky.
I just wanted to make a motion, if that's okay, Mayor.
Okay, I will read the resolution. A resolution approving a proposed agreement including language changes for a successor memorandum of understanding between the City of Modesto and Modesto City Firefighters Association for a term of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2024. Authorizing the city manager to prepare and execute the successor MOU and authorizing the city manager or his designee to take the necessary administrative action to implement the agreement. Resolution granting salary changes to unrepresented sworn fire management employees effective July 22, 2022, and non-sworn unrepresented management and confidential employees, including charter officers and executives, effective November 26, 2019, rescinding resolution number 2020-310 and authorizing the city manager or his designee to take the necessary administrative action to implement the changes. Resolution updating benefit offerings for unrepresented sworn fire management and non-sworn management and confidential employees, including charter officers and executives, rescinding resolution number 2021-346, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to take the necessary administrative action to implement the changes. And I have a motion from Councilmember Escudia Brayton, and I see Councilmember Canoyer's hand raised.
Yes, I just would like to make a comment. I want to thank the finance department and the budget department and all our staff for working so hard to always come up with a balanced budget and for taking what is important to the citizens of Modesto. And so I just want to compliment them and tell them how much I appreciate all the work and effort they put into this. And I'm ready to vote.
All right, thank you. I had a motion, I believe, from Councilmember Escudia Brayton. Sorry, was it from Councilmember Ricky?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay, all right. Motion from Councilmember Ricky. I apologize if I confused that. Second from Councilmember Escudia Brayton. And will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Madrigal,
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wright?
Aye.
Councilmember Scutia Brayton?
Aye.
And Mayor Zwellen.
Aye, so it carries 6-0. Thank you very much. Are there any matters too late for the agenda? Seeing none, I'm calling this meeting of the City Council to be adjourned.